This is in response to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times on Friday, March 11th, 2016, Trade and Tribulation. Now, there's been a lot of talk, especially among the Republicans and the Democrats, a fair amount in terms of trade policies. And we're looking at what happened in Michigan, where Sanders was supposed to lose by 20 points, and he ended up being the victor. Is this because of his continual knocking of the trade agreements that the United States has been in? Remember, Trump has been jumping all over that. He doesn't know anything about them. He just says he'll make a better deal. And of course, the idea of trade agreements with other countries, especially in Detroit and in Michigan, is that equals a loss of jobs in the United States, which has been going on for some time. So are we in a position where we're going to go back to what we would call protectionism? Now, in terms of what open trade markets or free trade or trade agreements, etc., it basically helps open markets overseas. And a lot of times, those people who are advocating for protectionism often exaggerate these trade policies. But let's be honest, these trade policies have had adverse effects. And there are many causes of these trade policies and the adverse effects, not only on policy, the value of the dollar, and a number of other things that can affect all of that. Now, when Sanders was talking about Hillary, basically indicating that her free trade policies, have resulted in a lot of loss of jobs in Michigan. That's really bogus, because basically a lot of our free trade policies go back to the 1960s. And even though Detroit basically has been going into decline, the trade policies go back to the 1940s. And Detroit has basically been going in decline from the 1960s. That concept is really, really bogus. But he has hit her on the Keystone Pipeline and on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And she's not in favor of them now, but she helped negotiate him at their particular point in time. But again, these policies have been in effect for a long time. When they were instituted in the 1940s, it was basically to help prop up democracies that were close to, let's just say, the Soviet Union and their allies for Cold War effects. So, as an example, if you saw that the Soviet Union at the time was going into some African country in the late 40s, early 50s, then we would go into the one next to it to try and prop up that government as a hedge against what we would call the domino effect back then. But again, so we've been having these policies for a long time. We really can't rip them up. They're legitimate policies. So a lot of it that's been going on is, a lot of bluster because there isn't a whole lot you can do right away. But getting back to Detroit, there is that perception, and it's very strongly held, that these trade agreements equal a loss of jobs. Because I remember back in the late 60s and early 70s when we had the wave of, what was it, Datsun? Datsun, which is now... oh, God, what the heck, which one is it? I can't. So they had the Datsun B210. They had the Opel Kadett, which I think was part of Volkswagen. They all came in. They were all nice, little, neat cars. They ran well. And, of course, there was a whole host of other things when they brought transistor radios in from Japan in the early 60s. So this has been going on for a long, long time. And we're not going to rip up our international agreements. That's not going to happen. But we have to be honest on what these trade policies are. Are they big sellouts to big corporations and to individuals that they get a whole host of money and we lose jobs? Of course, we need to work on that. And of course, that's the job of the president. And it will be interesting to see if whoever gets in the White House, if they'll be able to negotiate anything good. Trump has shown a lot of bluster, but he doesn't really know anything about international trade agreements. Now, the big thing that Dr. Krugman points out about this, and I would agree with this, is that the United States has always been the leader. In terms of trade, we need to hone the trade agreements. We need to make them more effective for us, to protect some things where it needs to be protected, to open up where it is, to hedge against currency manipulation, etc. But we do have the Paris agreements. And the Paris Agreements, it's not just America, it's the entire world taking the first tiny step towards dealing with global climate change. And my hope is that we're going to accelerate past it. I've seen that some states who had a certain amount of pollution that they were going to stop by the year 2020. Now they're looking at, say 2025. They want to trap all of that even before 2020. So we're working diligently on it. It's a small step, but the United States has to be the leader, and it needs to maintain that leadership. And we have a lot of international agreements that we need to maintain, but we need to hone them. We need to work with those countries. We need to protect ourselves where we need to be protected. We need to keep the open markets. And again, this is a big clause, a big claim for healthcare, for increasing education, etc. But again, the work of those trade agreements is going to have to be done by the president, and they're going to have, not bluster, but real, deep down, strategic agreements as to how we're going to move forward. And the bluster that we're seeing right now is not going to cut it.